What's up, y'all? It's your boy Charles. We're about to check out Donald Goines' Horson classic book. Where we left off at, Horson had just been born by his mama, who was a prostitute. So this is going into the second chapter, y'all. This is the story of a ghetto pimp. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. Let's go ahead and get right into it.
2. The slum I grew up in seemed to me to be the most wonderful place in the world. My early childhood was pleasant, and it was a rare occasion when I saw something in a store that my mother couldn't buy for me. Jessie saw to it that I always had money for the candy store. Whenever I lost the marble she had previously bought, she'd quickly give me money to buy some more. Most of us kids loved the backyards and alleys that we played in with our slingshots made out of discarded tire tubes. We overturned garbage cans in the hope of startling a good-sized rat so we could shoot at it with our homemade slingshots. Between the alley cats, dogs, and us, we kept the alleys, yards, and run-down barns clean of rats during summer daylight hours. When night fell, it was the other side of the coin. The rats came out in full force, and many children were bitten because they had slept out on the porch to beat the evening heat.
Wow.
We lived in an upper flat on the second floor. Besides my mother and me, there was a big tomcat, that we just called Cat, who shared the flat with us. Before Jessie would go to work at night, she always managed to run Cat down and toss him in my bed with me. For me to mention sleeping out on the front porch at night was taboo, so I would play with Cat in my large bed until I fell asleep. I didn't know it at the time, but she did it because of her fear of rats. After tucking me into bed, she would ruffle my hair and kiss me on the cheek. "Well, little pimp, I got to go and catch 'em now. You be good, and I'll let you count the trap money in the morning," she'd say, before turning out the light and leaving me on my own until she came back sometime in the morning. On a few occasions, she didn't get back in the morning. When this occurred, one of my mother's girlfriends would be in the bed with me when I woke up. When this happened, I know that Jessie wouldn't be home until later that day, so I would go downstairs and have my breakfast. The woman who lived under us had a bunch of children, so one more mouth didn't make too much difference. When we played in the backyard, the boys next door would call them the welfare's pride and joy. If I'd laughed too much, the little girls who stayed under me would remark, "Ain't no sense you laughing, fool, 'cause your mammy ain't nothing but a whore." I'd look at them and grin. "You're the fool, girl. You and your sisters and mammy need to get off welfare and become whores." This would cause all of the kids in the yard to laugh, and I'd join in with them. At the age of 5, it's pretty hard for a child to understand the meaning of whore. If my mother wasn't home after I ate lunch, I'd wait till the woman upstairs woke up, and then she'd take me over to Big Mama's to stay. This made me think I was the most fortunate boy in the world. Instead of one mother, I had 2, Big Mama and Jessie. With the passing of summer, my small world began to change. A big event in my life was my first trip to the neighborhood barbershop. Jessie dressed me with care. She had me put on my new suit and shoes, then marched me out of the house. She had always cut my hair at home, but since I was going to start school in the fall, she decided to have it done at the barbershop. The men sitting around the place stared at us when we entered. I didn't care. The barbershop was a foreign place to me. I stared around in wonder. The tall chairs with men sitting in them, getting their hair combed, the glittering mirrors that surrounded the walls, all of this was a new world for me. The loud music from the jukebox made my feet sway with the beat as I danced along beside Jessie, keeping up. She seemed unconcerned as she walked me up to an empty chair. She spoke to a short, fat, balding barber. "I want you to cut it off the back real good, but don't take too much off the top." The barber sighed. "Why is it, girl, every time one of you bring in a red nigga, you always say just cut a little off, but when you bring in a black boy, you want it all cut off?" Jessie stared at him coldly. "Nigga, all you got to do is look at your head in the mirror, then look at his hair. But that ain't here nor there. I ain't got nothing to do with how you cut some little black boy's hair. What I'm worried about is how you cut my little red nigga's hair. So you pay heed, nigga, this red one is mine, and you cut it like I say." She whirled on her heel and stalked out. The men lounging in the shop laughed loudly. One heavy-voiced man roared over the noise. "I bet you cut that boy's hair right, Lou." Lou seemed to take it as a joke. He smiled, displaying a row of yellow-stained teeth. "That's just what I was telling you boys the other day. A nigger couldn't give me no black woman. They is the most meanest woman God ever put breath in." He continued, "You damn near got to be crazy to fight with Jessie anyway. She fights like a man." Another bystander spoke up. "Shit, man, consider yourself lucky if she fights and don't do no cutting. That black girl there sure enough me with a razor." The barber rubbed my head, the way Jesse did sometimes before he started to trim my hair. After he finished with my haircut, he bought me a pop and sat me up on top of the shoe shine stand. "I wonder where your mom went," he asked offhandedly. One of the idle bystanders spoke up. "She probably caught a trick, Lou." Lou shook his head for the man to remain silent, but the man continued, "Hell, Lou, don't you never think that boy don't know what his mother does. Ask him what his name is." "I know what his name is," Lou answered. I was too young to understand the pity the man had for me, but his kindness was understood. Jessie came through the door, walking as though the world belonged to her. Her high-heeled shoes rang louder than the taps on my heels as she took that long stride of hers. She stopped and swayed, her hands on her hips. Every eye in the barber shop was on this tall black woman who carried herself with such pride. "Well, Lou, I guess I won't have to make you knock down one of these walls getting out of here this time." Lou grinned. "I'm sure glad you ain't going to do me no harm, Jess. I sure started to cut a little more off the top, though. You damn near got this boy looking like a girl with all this hair on his head." Jessie reached up and removed me from the shoe shine stand. She picked me up with the same ease that Lou had shown. "I'm glad you didn't, Lou," she said. "I know how I want my pimp's hair to look, and this is the only pimp I got." With a vigorous shove, Jessie started me towards the door. I ran out of the shop into the street I loved so well. There was not much difference between the daylight business and the night business on Hastings. The street was full of slow-moving cars, the drivers being more interested in the colored prostitutes in the doorways than on the traffic moving in front of them. I waved at the various girls I knew, standing in the gangways. Some of them yelled across the street at me, "Look at Horson! Ain't he sharp today?" Jessie caught up with me. "You take your fast ass home and get out of them new clothes." I crossed the street on my way home, and one of the girls came out of a doorway and caught me. She gave me a hug, then pressed a quarter into my hand. "Let that boy go on home. You ain't doing nothing but spoiling him," Jessie yelled. I grinned, kissed the girl on the cheek, and went home.
Wow, that was dope, man. So that is an excerpt from Donald Goins' Whoreson, Story of a Ghetto Pimp. Y'all can check it out on Audible if y'all want to hear the rest of it. But it's a really good book, man. I remember reading this book. It's just the way he tells the story, man. Uh, Donald Goins. I want to do another one. I want to do the next one. I want to do is I got the name of his other books, but he got a bunch of them. This one really particular is really detailed. You just can visualize everything. He visualized things, and the way he writes things down is just so like you can see it, you know. And that's the tale of a really good author. Anyways, what do y'all think about this, man? Have y'all read Horson? Let me know in the comments and subscribe to Charles and Ezra. Appreciate you guys watching. Take care.